Bobby?
Have you checked the children?
What?
It's one of the most chilling lines in horror history, and it came from a movie shot on real murder sites starring a dying actor and inspired by a true crime even more disturbing than the film itself. It was a production shaped by loyalty, accidents, and eerie coincidences. A war hero hunting a killer, a terrified babysitter played by an actress who can't watch horror, and a filmmaker refusing to replace his terminally ill friend. This is the twisted story behind When a Stranger Calls, a story where the real horror lingered behind the camera. Fact number 1, it started as a $12,000 short film. Before When a Stranger Calls became a horror classic, it was just an idea in the minds of two struggling filmmakers willing to bet everything on 22 minutes of pure terror. Director Fred Walton and writer Steve Feek scraped together their own money and donations from friends to create a short film called The Sitter in 1977, with a total budget of just $12,000. This wasn't a studio project. This was two guys maxing out their credit cards and calling in every favor to bring their vision to life. The short focused entirely on that opening sequence, a babysitter alone in a house, receiving increasingly disturbing phone calls, building to one of cinema's most chilling revelations. Little did they know, this tiny independent short would become the foundation for one of the most profitable horror films of 1979. Fact number 2, the short accidentally launched a hit. The Sitter could have easily disappeared into obscurity, but fate intervened. The 22-minute short was scheduled to play before Looking for Mr. Goodbar at Mann's Village Theater, where executive producers Barry Cross and Douglas Chapin noticed something extraordinary. The short film was getting a bigger reaction from the audience than the main feature. People came to see a major theatrical release starring Diane Keaton, but it was the low-budget short beforehand that had them gripping their armrests. Genuinely terrified, Cross and Chapin immediately recognized they had witnessed something special and approached Walton and Feek about expanding The Sitter into a feature film. Sometimes the best discoveries happen completely by accident. Fact number 3, filmed during real serial murders. When a Stranger Calls was being made in the middle of actual terror. In November 1978, as the cast and crew were filming in downtown Los Angeles, the city was gripped by fear from the Skid Row stabbing murders, and by sheer disturbing coincidence, production used some of the exact same locations where real victims had been discovered, including the steps of the Los Angeles Public Library. Imagine being an actor knowing that just days earlier, someone had been murdered in the very spot where you're now filming a movie about a killer. The atmosphere on set must have been electric with genuine unease, not manufactured tension, but real fear hanging in the air. The film's gritty middle section wasn't just good cinematography, it was capturing a city on edge. Fact number 4, the villain was dying during production. Tony Beckley's performance as killer, Curt Duncan, carried a tragic real-world weight that audiences never knew. Beckley was terminally ill throughout the entire production, and he passed away just 6 months after the film premiered in April 1980. Every unsettling moment was delivered by a man who knew his time was running out. While his death was officially attributed to cancer, Beckley's friend, actress Sheila Hancock, later suggested it may have been AIDS-related, a disease that was barely understood at the time. Beckley brought a haunted, desperate energy that made Curt Duncan unforgettable. It's impossible not to wonder if some of that raw performance came from an actor confronting his own mortality while playing a character obsessed with death. Fact number 5, the director refused to recast him. When your lead actor is dying, conventional wisdom says you recast. Director Fred Walton didn't care about conventional wisdom. Despite knowing that Tony Beckley was terminally ill and that he didn't even match the original physical description for the killer, Walton absolutely refused to recast him because they were good friends. This was loyalty over logistics, friendship over practicality. Walton could have made things easier, but he valued their personal relationship above everything else. It's a decision that speaks volumes about Walton's character, and Beckley rewarded that faith with an unforgettable performance. Gaunt, desperate, genuinely unsettling, that became the dark heart of the film. Fact number 6, Beckley performed in over 1,000 stage productions. Before Tony Beckley became the face of terror in When a Stranger Calls, he had already lived an entire career Most actors could only dream of Beckley was a veteran British actor who had performed in over 1,000 stage productions and television shows in England before taking on what would become his final film role, 1,000 Productions. This wasn't some newcomer, this was a seasoned theatrical professional who had spent decades honing his craft. The way he modulates his voice during those phone calls, shifting from menacing to pathetic to terrifying within seconds, that's 1,000 performances worth of skill. American audiences might not have known his name, but they were witnessing a master craftsman creating one of horror cinema's most unsettling villains. Fact number 7. Charles Durning was a decorated World War II hero. Charles Durning brought something profound to his role, the experience of having survived real-life horror. Durning, who played Detective John Clifford, was awarded the Silver Star, Bronze Star, and 3 Purple Hearts for his extraordinary valor during World War II. 3 Purple Hearts means he was wounded in combat 3 separate times. But the most staggering fact, Durning was drafted at age 20 and became the sole survivor of his unit when they landed on Omaha Beach on June 6, 1944. D-Day. When you watch him as Detective Clifford obsessively hunting Kurt Duncan, there's a weight to his performance that goes beyond acting. This is a man who genuinely understood evil and brought that understanding to his portrayal of a cop who refuses to give up. Fact number 8. Carol Kane can't watch her own movie. Here's a delicious irony.
Isn't that a terrible picture?
I thought it was nice.
The actress who delivered one of horror cinema's most iconic performances can't stand to watch horror films. Carol Kane has admitted that she's largely averse to the horror genre and can't bring herself to watch When a Stranger Calls. The woman whose terrified face traumatized a generation of babysitters won't sit through her own movie. But this makes perfect sense. Kane's performance feels so authentic precisely because she tapped into real fear. Acting requires accessing genuine emotions, and sometimes once you've been to those dark places for a role, you don't want to go back, even as a viewer. Kane gave everything to that performance, and now the film exists as this thing she created, but can't bear to experience. Fact number 9. Audiences screamed at the screen. The true test of any horror film is what happens in a packed theater. Carol Kane herself witnessed this when she attended a theatrical screening, watching as audiences began screaming and actively talking back to the screen during the film's famous opening 23 minutes. People were so terrified that they lost normal theater etiquette, yelling at Jill to get out, screaming when the phone rang. It's the kind of communal experience that made 1970s horror cinema special. That opening sequence worked so well that it literally broke down the barrier between audience and screen. People weren't passive viewers anymore, they were participants, desperate to warn the protagonist to somehow change the outcome they knew was coming. Fact number 10. Carol Kane was 27 playing a teenager. Hollywood loves casting adults as teenagers, but When a Stranger Calls took this to an extreme audiences never questioned. Carol Kane was 27 years old when she played high school babysitter Jill Johnson in the film's opening sequence, nearly a decade removed from actual high school. Yet it works perfectly. Kane had a youthful vulnerability that read as teenage. The casting actually benefited the film. Kane brought acting maturity that a real teenager might not have possessed. She could modulate her terror with precision, building it gradually from mild annoyance to absolute panic. Sometimes the best casting choices aren't about perfect age accuracy, they're about finding the actor who can deliver the performance the role demands. Fact number 11. The rating was changed after initial approval. The story of how When a Stranger Calls got its R rating reveals the politics of movie classification. The American Classification and Rating Administration initially voted unanimously to give the film a PG rating. But then, MPAA Chair Richard Hefner personally intervened, calling for a reconsideration because he argued the film was too psychologically unsettling for unaccompanied children, and the rating was changed to R. Every single rating board member voted PG, but one man at the top overruled them all. This was 1979, 5 years before PG-13 existed, so there was a massive gap between PG and R ratings. Hefner's intervention probably helped the film's box office by making it seem more dangerous and adult. Fact number 12, it was shot in less than a month. Modern productions can drag on for months. When a Stranger Calls had no such luxury. the entire principal photography wrapped in just 27 and a half days, beginning on October 9th, 1978, in and around Los Angeles. They had less than 4 weeks to capture every scene, every performance, and every shot perfectly. This breakneck pace created a pressure cooker environment that helped the film's tense atmosphere. The actors had to be on their game from day one. No time for extensive rehearsals or endless takes. That energy translated to the screen. The film has an urgency that never lets up, and while that's intentional storytelling, it was also baked into the production reality. They were making a movie about relentless pursuit while being relentlessly pursued by their own shooting schedule. Fact number 13. It was Donald Peterman's feature film debut. Every cinematographer has to get their first feature credit somewhere, but few have a debut as impressive as Donald Peterman's. The film marked Peterman's first time serving as director of photography on a theatrical feature, and the visual style he created launched him into a career that would eventually earn him 2 Academy Award nominations, one for Flashdance in 1983 and another for Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home in 1986. The film has 3 distinct visual styles: the warm suburban lighting that gradually becomes ominous, the gritty, documentary-style urban middle section, and the darker thriller cinematography of the climax. For a first-time feature cinematographer, this range is remarkable. Peterman understood that horror is about shadows, about what you suggest, about creating spaces where danger could be lurking. Fact number 14. It made $25 million on a $1.5 million budget. In Hollywood, success is measured in box office returns, and When a Stranger Calls was a phenomenon. The film became one of Columbia Pictures' biggest box office hits of 1979, pulling in approximately $25 million against its modest production budget of just $1.5 million. That's a return of more than 16 times the initial investment. The film made back its entire budget in the first week or two, and everything after was pure profit. This is why Hollywood loves horror. When they work spectacularly well. You don't need massive effects budgets or A-list stars. You need a good concept, solid execution, and the ability to scare audiences. When a Stranger Calls had all 3. Fact number 15. The film won 2 prizes at the same festival. Critical recognition and box office success don't always go hand in hand, but When a Stranger Calls achieved both. At the 1980 WWII Film Festival in France, the film received both the Prix de la Critique, Critics' Prize, and the Prix Spécial du Jury, Special Jury Prize, marking the first time a single film had won both awards at that festival. The WWII Festival was dedicated to fantastic and horror cinema, so winning there meant something. These judges knew the genre inside and out. For When a Stranger Calls to win 2 major prizes suggests even sophisticated European critics recognized something special. This dual recognition positioned the film as more than just another horror movie. It was legitimate suspense cinema that proved you didn't have to choose between artistic merit and audience appeal. Fact number 16. Columbia re-released it a year later. Columbia Pictures recognized they had something special and decided to capitalize. Following the film's impressive initial box office performance, Columbia took the unusual step of re-releasing When a Stranger Calls to theaters in fall 1980. Timing it perfectly with special screenings on Halloween night in cities like Miami and throughout the Raleigh area. This was strategic genius. By fall 1980, word of mouth had spread. People who missed it wanted to experience that terrifying opening sequence. Halloween night screenings turned the film into an event. It's a testament to the film's staying power that Columbia believed it could bring in audiences twice. The film had become more than a movie. It was an experience. Something you sought out rather than stumbled across. Fact number 17. Inspired by a true 1950 murder. The most terrifying stories are the ones that could actually happen. Director Fred Walton and writer Steve Feek developed the core concept after reading about the 1950 murder of Janett Christman, a babysitter who was killed while watching children for the Romack family in Columbia, Missouri. The real case was even more brutal than the film. Christman was alone in the house when an intruder broke in and attacked her. She managed to call for help, but police arrived too late. The child she was watching was unharmed, but Christman died from her injuries. Walton and Feek took the basic elements, the vulnerable babysitter, the house that should be safe but isn't, and crafted them into a narrative that would terrify audiences without exploiting the real victim. When a Stranger Calls gave primal fears a cinematic form. Fact number 18. The bar location was reused in multiple films. Some Los Angeles locations become characters themselves in cinema history. Torchy's Bar, the seedy establishment where killer Kurt Duncan meets the sex worker Tracy, was located at 218.5 West 5th Street in Los Angeles, and this same location later served as the filming site for the Redneck Bar in Eddie Murphy's 48 Hours and the 1985 version of Brewster's Millions, starring Richard Pryor. Location scouts kept returning to this place because it had that genuine worn-down quality you can't fake on a soundstage. The scratch bar top, the dim lighting, the sense that this is where people go when they've got nowhere else. That's real, and it translates on film. Films like When a Stranger Calls captured these spaces before they vanished, giving us a time capsule of late 1970s Los Angeles. Fact number 19, Wes Craven paid direct homage. The highest compliment one filmmaker can pay another is to reference their work. Wes Craven was an admitted fan of When a Stranger Calls, particularly its famous opening 20 minutes, and he paid direct tribute to the film in the opening sequence of his 1996 meta-horror masterpiece, Scream. Both openings feature a young woman alone in a house, receiving threatening phone calls from a killer, building to shocking violence. But Craven wasn't just copying, he was building on the template, adding his own innovations. Both films understand that the scariest moments come from vulnerability, from being trapped in a space that should be safe, but isn't Craven's homage helped introduce a new generation to the power of that concept? Fact number 20. The 1993 sequel was dedicated to Beckley. 14 years after the original, the key players reunited for a sequel that also served as a memorial. When a Stranger Calls Back, released in 1993, brought together Carol Kane and Charles Durning reprising their roles, and the film carried a dedication to Tony Beckley's memory. By 1993, enough time had passed that the sequel felt like a reunion rather than a cash grab. The dedication to Beckley was a classy touch, acknowledging that his performance as Kurt Duncan had been the dark heart of the original. The fact that Kane and Durning agreed to return suggests they felt the original had been something special, worth revisiting. And that dedication ensured that even though Beckley had been gone for over a decade, his contribution to horror cinema would be remembered. From a $12,000 short film to a $25 million box office hit, from tragic loss to critical acclaim, from inspiring Wes Craven to becoming a horror legend, When a Stranger Calls is proof that the most compelling stories aren't always the ones on screen. Sometimes the most fascinating drama happens behind the camera. Which fact shocked you the most? Drop a comment below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into horror history, smash that like button and subscribe for more bizarre behind-the-scenes stories from your favorite films. Have you checked the children? We'll see you in the next video.